Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Brian. I'm the host of the Left of Greg show. You're going to be watching the video version of our audio podcast. Please, guys, if you like the video, like it, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more content on there if you're already a subscriber, and a better way for us to get you guys some more stuff. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. Check out our links down below to get a hold of us and to actually find out more places where you can get more information about this. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at HBPRNA. Remember, all these cases that we discuss and all the discussions that we have are through the lenses of what we call human behavior, pattern recognition, and analysis. So please like it, share it, tell your friends about it, and we hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. All right. Well, Reed, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate having you on here, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So just for everyone listening, I reached out to Reed not long ago, and he graciously accepted my invitation to be on the podcast and to come on. So he's on here today after I read one of his articles. So before we kind of jump into the specific reason of what we're going to be talking about today and how you analyze this QAnon conspiracy theory, can you just tell us like a little bit about you and what you do as a game designer, how long you've been doing it and how you approach things, and we'll kind of start there and then we'll jump into everything.
Sure. Okay. I came into game design through design and computer art interactions, and started designing educational games pretty early on in my career in my 20s. And then moved on to creating an internet startup, one of the 1.0 versions. And we worked with a lot of media companies. So we worked with Universal Studios and Paramount and Time Warner Turner, Cartoon Network, things like that, introducing them and their properties to the internet and to interactive entertainment, which was at the time very new. Now it's very commonplace, but the idea of having a two-way interaction with your audience was completely unknown at that time. And we worked with a lot of gaming companies at that time as well. So it was also during that time that I developed a very early alternate reality game. Maybe the first, but you can't tell because these things are very under the radar, and there's a lot of variation. It wasn't Ank's Hat early, but it was pre AI or the Beast, the game that kind of was very influential in the field. So it was early on, and that's where I started getting my experience with alternate reality gaming and sort of how you can tell stories using reality as a medium. And so that became really interesting to me and continued on with the work that I did. And after working with so many media companies and seeing sort of the struggles that they were working with about how to transfer their properties from the original medium that they were working with, a movie, video game, then how to translate it to a movie or a comic book or something like that, I decided maybe it would be a good idea that there was a company that could kind of show them how to do that and give them sort of the basics of what people were experiencing and how to translate it. And it wasn't as simple at the time as, if you have a video game and there's, you've made $1 million and there's a guy with a turban that jumps around for 30 hours and slashes people with a scimitar. You can't just make a movie that is a guy jumping around for 90 minutes with a scimitar and throw in a love interest and get a good director and soundtrack and just hope for the best. There's a process.
Right.
And so a lot of companies didn't have very strong research departments. Even though they were multi-billion-dollar industry, most of their research was put into marketing. And so that's where Curiouser LLC was born, to kind of consult with companies and individuals making projects that were a little bit more on the edge, where they needed a little bit deeper knowledge of what fiction was doing for the people that were interacting with it and how to best translate it and work with it. So that's too much of my background. I'm not
No,
sure, but
No, it's great.
that's
uh,
really cool stuff. And I think that that kind of gives a a great background, a great framework to how you jumped into this article actually, because you basically and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're the one who can take a game, right, and literally bring it to life. I mean, in terms
yeah,
of alternate reality gaming, and then also bring it to life on a screen, in a movie or a show, like you just said. That takes a lot. Like you said, you have to know how to build and create a story that will hook people in, entertain them long enough throughout the film, and then either get them to go buy the video game or then get them to watch the sequel or all that, right? So
yeah,
that's
they're like different languages, and you have to be able to translate from one to the other. It's not a direct translation. It all has to go through the people who are enjoying it. It has to go through the psychology of, the players, the viewers, the fictioners, we call
yeah.
them. But
The challenge of defining entertainment. I mean, what is entertainment,
yeah,
right?
what is
And
fiction, right? That's our
how,
core.
precisely.
That's our. I mean, if Google has its core, that yes, they sell advertising and so on, but really, it's how to find things, right? And ours would be what is fiction. That's our
That's it.
mission statement. Is
Yeah.
to define it in a way that you can communicate it to other people, because there's lots of smart people out there who
Hmm.
know how to make it. But it's like the difference between being a great chef, which you can be without knowing why we eat. you know
Right.
in the Middle Ages there were great chefs, but they didn't understand nutrition, and they didn't
Mhm.
understand the process. They knew that people got hungry, and they knew how people tasted, and so they could make great food. But sometimes there were tricky things, like how do you store food then if you don't know what it is. So we have a little niche going on.
No, that's it's really one. It's really cool. I think I love that perspective of how you take it from, and so let's just go ahead and jump right into what you wrote, because you wrote a whole article all about the QAnon conspiracy. And for those who listening who don't know anything about the QAnon conspiracy, it's basically this kind of cabal of global leaders and people who are involved in pedophile rings and sex trafficking, and there may even, depending on what part of the QAnon conspiracy you go down into, there's also possibly some harvesting of organs in there and all kinds of other wild things that,
Magic.
yeah, it's all sort of kind of coalesced into one off of all these different stories. But you wrote it, and what you saw, right from the article, I'll take the quote because this is what hooked me into reading your entire article, which is really well researched and really well done. I'll have the links in the episode details for everyone. But it's you said, when I saw QAnon, I knew exactly what it was and what it was doing. I had seen it before. I had almost built it before. It was gaming's evil twin, a game that plays people. And I was like, dang, well, all right. So now I'm interested. I'm like, okay, I'm reading this from all the way to the end. This sounds really cool. So what is it that you saw, or what was that moment where we went, oh my God, I've seen this before?
Oh, right away. I mean, I saw it and I was like, oh, I know what this is. I think, when I saw it, the alternate reality game, The Beast, I was probably one of the few people in the world who saw it and went, oh, I know what this is. I just built that, a few years ago. Uh, you know what I mean? Like I saw it and I knew, I just knew. You
So
know?
you could see it for the elements that were in there, right? You could define them and say, oh, I've seen these little elements before. I know where that comes from. Is that what you
Yeah,
mean? Or
I mean that. Okay, yeah, okay. How, I don't know. It was a gut reaction, but also I took that gut reaction. I said, okay, what is going on here? Let's see how close this is to a game. What's different about it, and what's the same about it? And of course, at first I didn't do anything with it because I didn't quite understand how deep it was, and I didn't understand how specific my knowledge was about this, that
right,
maybe other people, one, didn't see it, and as we talked about earlier, couldn't explain why it creeped them out or why it felt weird to them or how the process was working. And so I talked to some people on the Everything Immersive board and a few other gaming places, and I kind of made a long post about it, and they said, you should write this up And I said, "Are you sure people, want to know about this?" And they're like, "Yeah, this is good. This is a good explanation." So I went ahead and wrote the article
You know how you know
based on
it's a
what I
good
saw.
Reed, you know how you know that it's a good article and a great explanation. One, idiots like Marin and I glam onto it and we want to talk to you. But more importantly, that people try to poke holes in it, say stuff like "stay in your lane" and try to explain it away. And the more fervent they are in their denial that this is true, the more you know it's true. And
Yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example of that. I'm running this morning. I know I look like a giant. It's all downhill and it's very slow, but I'm running this morning. I got like a run mix and I'm reading and doing some other stuff. And all of a sudden, the new book that I just started, I got 3 books in the house going at all times. The new book I just started, the character works on computers from his home, and he's in the same city and state that you are. Now, I don't want to say that, and if you don't want to blow the illusion, you get what I'm trying to say. And so immediately, the very first thing that my mind grasped onto was, this is a sign. Now, you and I both know there's no sign. Do you get what
Right.
I'm trying to say? But when
Right.
you read the article, that simple conclusion is so fast in the human brain. And
Yeah.
then once it's there, you think it's always been there, and it's not
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, that's that apophenia that we talk about in the article, which is that, yeah, your mind is hardwired to see patterns, and you know, the cost of being right is better than the cost of being wrong. So you
Exactly.
want to see as many patterns as you can, and you want to analyze them quickly, and it's okay to come to wrong conclusions that you can adapt later. um, so you are very, very hardwired to try to understand it. And when I was doing the article, I came to a much better understanding of apophenia. And a friend of mine basically said, so basically apophenia is science without proof. Which it kind of is. I mean, a scientist trying to create a hypothesis is going to look at a bunch of data and then going to think, I think I see something, but then they go through the evidence and they go through the scientific process, and that saves them, right? The peer review, the fact of saying, okay, yep, I was wrong, and then publishing a paper about how wrong they were and the
Precisely.
ways that they were wrong, and that's science. And this is the opposite.
So
Right.
Reed, one of the great things, Brian, that Reed did is he brought apophenia into everybody's lexicon that nobody had heard of before. So if you study minute, trivial human behavior stuff like we do, the irony of what you just said, Reed, is we specialize in human behavior pattern recognition, and then the second part, and analysis. So patterns are hugely important to the human brain. You're predisposed to see them in everything, and that's why there's a thing like pareidolia. So pareidolia
Yep.
lets you see, images in the potato chip, or that this tree leaf is a frog, and apophenia is the other side of that same coin, right? And then if you add Gestalt theory, which is still a theory, Gestalt says your brain is going to paint in what's missing anyway, and that's reality. See, that's why I love reality and fiction so much, is because there's a very fine line, and depending on who's speaking at the podium, it's very easy to mix up your definitions.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think that you know, one of the first things of researching QAnon was to say, okay, well, I'm not, when you first get into it, you're like, oh my gosh. And I think many people stop right there and they're like, this is crazy. And
Yeah.
then they can't get any further than that. But if you just look at the techniques and don't look at what you don't rush to judgment about it, you begin to realize that these are intelligent, caring people, who want to help. you
Yeah.
know
Yep.
uh the participants, I mean. Not the people running the game.
Right.
No,
And
there's
this
much more nefarious intent there. Right?
yes. And then when you look at the techniques like you were talking about, the sort of seeing the man on the moon and filling in the details, at first it seems baffling because you're like, this is they're always wrong. You know what I mean? Like they're proven wrong all the time. So why is it still going on? Just like a cult or anything else. And I think the fact is that we're perfectly fine living in a fictional world. Like a lot of what we do day to day, we understand may not be real, either because we don't know or just simply because we choose to believe otherwise, including the things that mean the most to us. So, we may have a religion that we are fervent about and believe, and yet if you ask, a basic Christian, Jew, Muslim, like, well, do you really believe that the rain came like, no, not real. I believe in being good to people and things
Yeah,
like that. And then do you believe in angels? Like, well, maybe I haven't
it,
met any, but it could be. I don't know. So they have a very, like, when things are tough, maybe yes, angels, and then maybe later on in other parts of their lives, maybe not.
yeah.
Or maybe not literal angels, but there's a way to talk about them, and it's very fluffy. And you can live in a world where things are real sometimes and not real other times, and it doesn't bother you. So it doesn't bother the QAnon people either, that parts of it maybe they don't believe in. Like, they don't believe in that
Right. And
the literal vampire part of it, but but they like the people, and they like and they think that the politics is on par with their beliefs, and so it's not as baffling, you know
well,
when you look at your own life.
and you bring up a number of themes that you see throughout, not just conspiracy theories, but all belief systems. I mean, I don't care what that belief system or ideology is. It could be religious, political, social, cultural, right? We have our certain beliefs, and we want to fit in, and we want to know more, and we want to think that they're right, and it's tough to question them, and some we take literally, and some, well, that's not literal, but metaphorically it makes sense, and especially when you get into religious stuff where, man, I mean, all the most major religions are all, the point is to be a good person. So how much you
One would hope.
interpret it, yeah, I will, yeah, most of them,
Yeah.
and so some people take it literally and some take it metaphorically. And you brought up a bunch of great stuff with not just apophenia, but in general, how we want to connect dots, and then how you use that to build a game, right? And one of
Yeah.
the things they do is you called it, I think you referred to it as like guided apophenia, right? So you do that in a game. So can you give us an example of, like, I know you talked about one specifically in the article, about like the arrows that didn't
Yeah.
lead anywhere.
Yeah.
You can give that example, or another one of how you see it in a game and how you saw that in the different stuff you were reading with the QAnon conspiracy.
Yeah, so that was like a big thing about Q, is that everything looks very, very similar to a game, but everything is inverted. In Inversion is very, very hard to detect, actually, unless you really know what you're doing. Like, when you look in a mirror, you see yourself, but you are inverted, not left to right, which most people think, but on the Z axis.
Yep.
So, and people can't see that. It's so common, but it's not you that's in the mirror, and your motions will be opposite, like this way, coming, an arrow pointing away from me points towards me, but it looks so clear. And this game, it looks like a game because it's got all the game elements, but it's literally backwards. So when you're a game designer, you're trying to create kind of a eureka moment, and you're trying to get people to have that fun of solving a really interesting puzzle. Okay. And so you're leading, you're dropping clues, and you're trying to lead them to this puzzle to solve, and then you're trying to train them up on how to solve the puzzle. Like a normal video game's got kind of a breaking point where they teach you the logic that they're using, and then they keep stepping it up and stepping it up, and they want you to solve the puzzle because that's where they know they've got the biggest hit of pleasure for you, right? They want you to feel good about yourself and move the story forward, and so on. So in QAnon, it's the opposite. They are leading you, they're guiding you, um, but there is no puzzle. They haven't written anything for you to solve. There's no big hit. So in a normal game, what you don't want, the opposite of what you want, is for people to start straying away from the plot. All right. It doesn't matter whether it's a video game, like a sandbox game, or something like that, or whether it's an alternate reality game. If you've got a puzzle set up in a plot or Dungeons and Dragons game, and you want everybody to go solve this puzzle because that's where the game is, and they say, "Oh, but some fluff text caught their attention, and suddenly they're like, no, he said purple, and that guy at the bar was wearing purple. We got to go back to the bar, and they make a connection that isn't part of your puzzle, right? It is not going to lead them to the solution. And in real life, you go off and you waste a lot of time. In a game, you try to circle them back and get them back into the thing so that they can have fun solving the puzzle, right? And you want to do it in a way that isn't, in a game you just suddenly bump into an invisible wall or something like that. Oh, I can't go that way. I get it. It's over here. I got it wrong. In an alternate reality game, you've got all these small tricks and things like that, embedded players and things to guide them. But eventually you want them to come back to the puzzle. You don't want apophenia seeing something and thinking it's the right answer to sidetrack you. And I give the example in the game of I made a game and the participants were looking for clues in a spooky basement, and it was a dirt floor basement, so there were all kinds of stuff on the floor and debris and things like that. And I had hidden a very funny puzzle. Like, it was very obvious. It was campy. It was very Scooby-Doo. And, and I figured they would just be down there with their flashlights and, kind of get that feeling of like, ooh, this is spooky. But then they'd see the puzzle and be like, oh, that's cute. But they didn't. They walked in, and some of the pieces on the floor, wood chips, had arranged into an arrow, and they were pointing at a wall. And they were like, okay, so where's the clue in the wall? And they went right to the wall, and they all stood there and were thinking about it, whatever. And then there was all these tools that you find in a basement, and they were perfect for chipping out a rock or two of this old basement's wall. And they're like, oh, I get it. I put two and two together. And yeah, and they were trying to think like a game designer. I think is I had led them. I had set up the scenario so that it was a game, and they understood that this was not going to be a complicated game, that the clues were going to be somewhat obvious. And so they were like, oh, like what would if I were making a game, I would put an arrow and point it to them. There would be tools, and then I would, what I mean? So they started working on it, and of course it had nothing to do with the puzzle. Right. It was leading them away from the puzzle, and I had to pull some tricks out. I had an embedded player to kind of, what's that over there? Kind of thing. Very sophisticated.
Right.
What I would have loved to have done though is use their apophenia and hidden something in the wall. That would have been the greatest, because they would have felt so proud. But we had to go a different way.
What you're talking about in there too, with just that experience, I mean, there's so much. It's not just the apophenia. There's so many different cognition biases we have to that. Where I mean, even just confirmation bias. If I'm looking for a clue and I think it's in that wall, of course, everything around me now becomes, oh, here's the shovel I'm supposed to use for it. Here's the axe, or here's the whatever it is. Like, I will now add value to objects that have no significance.
Yeah, no value. Because the first thing you do is you test the theory.
Yep.
So you're like, okay, is this the right theory? And you look around you and you look for evidence to support the theory. Now, and they found it in this case. Now this is why it's different in Q, right? So that's a game designer. That's something that I'm familiar with.
Right.
Okay, so I also know when it's inverted. So Q has no answer. This is just apophenia. So what this is doing is saying, hey, look at all those wood chips on the floor. Look at that. That's an arrow. And then you're like going, yeah, that is an arrow. And they're like, why would someone leave an arrow, on the floor? It must be pointing to something. Yeah, that makes sense, right? And so, and there's nothing in the wall. They just want you to tear down the wall. That's their
Exactly.
goal, right?
It's
so when you go onto the QAnon drops and stuff, it's always questions. It's questions. And they're always in a line, and they're literal breadcrumbs, and they're literally pointing you from one conclusion to another. And so the conclusions go to whatever the propaganda is that they are wanting you to get to. So and some of them are really crazy, and some of them are really mean. They're anti-Semitic. They're all kinds of things. And so if they say, so like this, so this is less like a game where you are going to solve a puzzle, and more like, maybe a meme generator or something like that, where it's like a
Right.
game that you play together and you create together. And I don't think some of these people have had that cool experience before. And so if you say to them, hey, everybody, why don't have you noticed something weird? Why are people doing this all the time? You know what I mean? Why are people doing this? That's weird.
Why
And
do
if
they
you
have an
think about it,
arrow?
it is weird.
Why do
Yeah.
they have an arrow in their office? Why
Yeah,
in their
right,
signature block was there an arrow on their logo?
right,
Precisely.
right. If you said, okay, you should look at all the arrows. It's not just the arrow pointing to the wall. There's more arrows out there. Now, of course, they know who's going to have what arrow, and they're going to post some pictures of people with arrows in the next week or so. But instead, they've got some pictures of the Rothschilds, and they wearing a certain outfit. And so before that, they're like, okay, you should look for this outfit, knowing you'll find it. They know that people that they don't trust, you know, I don't know, the media elite or rock stars or, whatever it is, degenerate Hollywood, is gonna, yeah, they're throwing the hand horns all the time. They do it. They've got their videos. They're trying to be creepy. They're trying to look like they're in a cult. They got blood coming out of their mouths, and they've got ghosts, and yeah, sure, that's their that's their thing, right? And
Yeah.
but they've posited a new reason for it. Like, what if it wasn't just that they're, you know, you don't know what these people are thinking. You're not one of them, right? So this distance really helps to be able to project onto them and say, what if you've just assumed that it was entertainment, but let me put another thing there. What if it wasn't? Like, what if it wasn't entertainment? What if they're serious? You're like, well, I hadn't really thought about that. You're like, take a look, and suddenly you've opened up your mind to a doubt, and then you're going to do just what you were talking about before. You're going to bias that doubt. You're going to look around for evidence to support that doubt, and they've already put the evidence there. The whole board is full of people that they either are, they could be all these people. Like nowadays, you can have a Twitter account with 200 people and they can all be bots.
Right.
You can literally be alone. you know um but
One
so
good
they've
thing, Reed. One good thing is for our viewers and our listeners, some new, many repeat. Brian, I think that we should have on the site for this episode, and specifically if you're listening right now live, make sure that you go and do it on your own. This is your homework. Look up game theory and just scan over game theory. You need to know that. Then look up game design. Don't abuse yourself by thinking that these are conflated. Make sure that you separate them. There are a lot of connections, but they're not the same thing. Then what you got to take a look at is the street version of what Reed just told our viewers. Brian and I, in our company, deals with human behavior pattern recognition analysis. So we have to build a game in the classroom for our in-person training where you first learn to sense make. Sense making is hugely important. You have to understand your environment and the players that operate within. Then you problem solve. The sense making leads you with the ability to have harder problems, and we like a rheostat ramp them up. And you go, wow, if this theory works here and this logic works here, can it be applied to this problem? And then finally, you come to decisions, and the decision matrix is depending on whether you're a first responder or a police officer or human resources or whatever else. And your game design and your theory comes from that same tree. The greatest two quotes to show how this QAnon paper shine a light on what it's not is you wrote, this is about looking up at the sky and somebody pointing out constellations for you. We use that analogy all the time in our work because you're overwhelmed
Nice.
by it. And if you're seeing a pattern and the guy next to you goes, yeah, I kind of see it. Okay, Cloud Boy, that one looks like a dog. There's the ball of yarn. You can get anybody to buy into it because the correct answer is always the one that provides the person that posited it with the most credit. And the more credit you get, the more you get the adrenal cortex pumping, the more you get the dopamine going. And so you actually reinforce that logic. And if you have one or two people around you group theory and groupthink takes over, and man, you're going down the rabbit hole. And Brian and I joked before reading this article, and Marin, came running down the hallway, so to speak, with the email and said, "You got to read this article." And I read it right away, and I glammed onto the fact that you were talking about exposing something where it was all questions. And people think that science is about questions. Science is about asking the right questions, then conducting testing to prove or disprove a hypothesis. These folks don't want to do any of that. These folks want to go, yeah, I see that guy's wearing a blue suit, but could blue be the cue here? Could that really be the thing? And all you have to do is put that drop in the water, and you've ruined the whole water. And just like Apple sense other apples, dying and create the apples in the barrel dying, that's exactly what you had with your article. And you did an incredible job exposing that.
Thank you so much. I think that's absolutely correct. The drop in the water, that is, our internet is open. It is so in some ways, as somebody who grew up when the internet grew up, right? I've always been working on BitNet and then moving on and on. There were no safeguards. It's an open well, like a community, and it's so, in some ways people think, oh, well, it's horrible. The internet is horrible, but it's so innocent and naive in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
People don't see that. And someone just came in and they poisoned it. I think in the last, I don't know how many years, but they successfully managed to put that drop in the water, and it just spread everywhere, and nobody was prepared for it. I've seen small examples of it before, like in news groups. They were just literally anybody on the internet could post anything they wanted, anywhere they wanted, as much as they wanted. And for a while, it literally worked fine until someone was like, hey, I can spam this.
Right.
And then that day it changed, and it became literally unusable, and it went away. It went away because they couldn't take the poison. There was no defenses. No one had. It was so trusting.
Yeah.
So, this is what's happening. I think that in social media and so on, there's a much bigger problem besides gaming, and that is that there's people out there actively attempting to corrupt
and
all the systems.
We're still trying to figure out. We're still kind of in the early stage, right, of figuring out how do we deal with so much information at once. And that's kind of how these things can even grow then, because then you question everything and what's a legitimate source, and people say, well, I can't believe these sources over here. Oh, but I'll definitely believe this source over here. It's like, well wait a minute. If you're going to apply scrutiny to them, apply the same scrutiny. But one of the reason why these stories get so big and spread and become popular is, what do you need in a good story? You need good characters, right? You got to have a good strong characters in that story, because then it can take on a life of its own, right? And so the main character in this one is Q itself, right? So Q is allegedly the person who, I guess Q is in reference to their level of security clearance, which I won't even get into where that goes, but the Q security clearance actually pertains to certain areas of information. But anyway, they had this high level security clearance and dropped in these kind of vague stories. It wasn't even really a story, right? It was just more just like, hey, I saw this and you'll learn more soon. And these real vague accusations. And then it kind of slowly grew from there, and you get into it. But tell us what your take is on this kind of this Q character and where it started.
All right. Well, Q, this is another thing that if you I don't even think you need to be a fiction researcher, a game developer, or anything like that to look at Q and be like, that is not real. That is not how people work. We've had enough whistleblowers by now.
Mm-hmm.
We know what a whistleblower does. The Chelsea Manning or someone else, they're like, oh my God. And whether they're right or whether they're wrong, they dump everything to the nearest available source that will put it out. Everything in a big block. Okay. And that's how whistleblowing generally works. There's a few exceptions, but it's almost 100% that someone has information and wants to get it out as quickly as possible to everybody. Right. So Q is so fictional. It's such a construct that that, you know, you've seen it on every TV show, every movie with the thing. There's always a, you know, the smoking man is the one I use in my article from the X-Files, where, you know, half the movies that you see that are mysteries would end in 10 minutes if the guy who contacts the other guy, you know, just said, "Oh, it's Bill." Bill set
Keep
this
an
whole
eye
thing
on
up.
Bill. Exactly.
Here's the paperwork. You know, it's Bill. I work with him. You know, here's his password. They're like, "Oh, what did he do? He killed Jessica. He killed her. He just killed her. Look, I've got the videotape. Check this." And then they'd be like, "Oh, wow, that's great. Call the police. I don't know what to do. Just it's over, right?" But no, they never do that. They can't do that because what you that's not the rabbit hole, right? That's not the experience that you want to have. It's a very specific experience, so it needs a very specific introduction. And so it's always you know, a character who knows but doesn't tell you. They
Right.
want you to, they want you, because literally in a movie, if you're not experiencing it with the main character, there's no movie. So and this is even more so for any kind of gaming or alternate reality experience. So the character has to know, and then they have to give you the clues so that you can have the fun of figuring out the clues. It's just a gaming mechanism. It's a pure fictional mechanism that is the polar opposite of any reality. Real people don't act like this. Fictional characters act like this, and they act like this because that is the engine that drives the experiential component of fiction.
In
So
2015, somebody posted a question that you took a stab at answering, and the question was very simple and very innocent, and it was by somebody about fiction that said, "What's more important, the character or the characterization? What's more important, the character or the drama, the role, the script?" And if we consider Q as a plot device, and we compare it to some stuff that we see on television, it's all about putting it together on your own rather than giving it to you. And your answer back then was the character, which I completely agree with. And I'll give you a for instance. You know, like while I'm typing, I got to have background noise going, so I always like to put on one of these ghost shows or one of the the
Bigfoot.
shape ape, skunk ape,
Yeah.
shows or something. I love conspiracy theories because you watch the people and you learn a ton. And this one show has the same premise, and it's been on for years in one manifestation or another. And it's about a medium who goes to the house. But first, her partner goes to the house and cleans anything, covers it up so she doesn't have any input from the house, which is a total lie because viscerally you're picking up everything. Just because a picture is covered with black doesn't mean that you don't understand that thing is important person. Then they've got a homicide detective that comes in and does all the background interviews, and he's a knuckle dragging. No, I don't take any shit. I'm going to give you the real thing, which is wonderful. And then finally, the medium comes in and she walks in. Ooh, I don't want to see. Oh, I don't want to. And what happens is when they put this mishmash of horse crap together, you're at home going, wait a minute. The bald guy that she was talking about could be this guy from 1874 that lived in the barn and abused kids. It's the same ridiculous plot device, but because you get to the answer before they do, you can't look away. You can't, it's like a car wreck that you can't avoid. So all Q did, the forces behind this, is create this recipe that we're all prone to react to. And I think it's brilliant. It's a brilliant strategy,
yeah,
even though it's being used for evil, and I got to
yeah,
say it that way. I think it's brilliant.
yeah. No, I think that there's a lot about Q that is amazing. I mean, I think that they've cracked some of the hard nuts of game design.
Yep.
Yes.
Um, there's very few games that can generate their own content and keep going forever. I mean, there was Neurocam, which had the participants have to do tasks in order to get into the group, and those tasks were to build puzzles for the other players on some level, and they became producers themselves at some point, and it went through. I wish I knew more about it. It ended up being a thesis paper or some, but it had billboards in the city. I mean, it was very crazy. But there are very few that can help people generate their own content, and Q does that really well. I think that also, you know, Q brings in people that are not interested in games and have never maybe played them and would never think to seek it out, and gives them an experience that is simply magical. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
want
Right.
to wax poetic about this group, but yeah, a friend of mine who's maybe not as concerned as some of the other people, he's like, but isn't it great that they get to experience this and have fun? And I'm like, it no,
Yeah,
it's
it's a
not.
short answer.
Simple answer.
No.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Frighteningly simple.
Yeah, because because of the damage that it's doing to them and to the world. But they're not wrong about the fact that they are having fun. That this is super compelling, and I mean, this is maybe where I go maybe analyze a little too deeply. But the game itself, I keep calling it a game. I don't know really what to call it. But it advertises its fictional nature at every turn. It's literally telling you that it's follow the white rabbit, go down the rabbit hole. I mean, these are the hallmarks of fiction. I mean, these are literally
Right.
when Alice in Wonderland goes from the real world into the dream nonsense world, she follows a white rabbit away from reality
Yes.
to a fantasy world. Okay. And I mean, my company's name is Curiouser. So, this, and when when you design alternate reality games, it's also called a rabbit hole. And this was all known before Q, right? So Q is literally saying, this is going to be fun. Like
Yeah.
Challenging you to
subconsciously,
take the red pill. Yeah, literally having it on the table in front of you the
the
entire time.
red pill, like that's another one that's
Yep.
from a game. Yeah, I mean from a movie
Movie, yeah.
that is, and you might say, oh, but the red pill leads to reality. No, it doesn't. Like
that's the whole point. Yeah.
You bought in.
that would be a terrible movie if you're like,
Yeah.
you started in the pod and end up back in reality, coding for a living. No, it's absolutely like the normal world. Do you want to stay in the normal world, or do you want to go to the crazy world? And you take the red pill. You know what I mean? All of
Exactly.
these things, breadcrumb trails, right? Another
Yeah.
Hansel and Gretel, hop on my thumb, reference, where breadcrumbs did not work out for Hansel and Gretel. I just want
No.
to point that out.
No, and so with all of these that you see these themes throughout and different stories, and it's also used in one of some of the stuff that Greg brought up too is how we transfer knowledge in a short amount of time is understanding learning theory, and like you just said, the whole breadcrumb is we're trying to get you to learn this framework, right? So, and articulate things in a lexicon that you just learned that day or the day before, right? And use it. So we got to put out those breadcrumbs so that you arrive at the conclusion, the right one. We don't want you to fall into draw an unreasonable conclusion and then have to correct you. We want you to draw that conclusion on your own. Now we're trying to do it to transfer a skill set and knowledge, and we're not doing it for nefarious purposes. But it's the same
we
process. Yeah, we could.
You could for the right amount of money if you're listening.
Yeah, if
you get what I'm trying to say. Anybody listening right now, we are available.
Right amount of zeros. But
we're gonna play this as the
Reed, there's only 3 people, Reed, that I've ever met in my life that use dopaminergic pathway as a description for something. And Brian and I are guilty of using dopamine and cortisol to bait humans to make the right decisions over and over. We do it all the time in class, and we're showing them in the practical applications, and we're teaching them when we're doing ride-alongs on the road. And we're saying when these 3 or 4 things cluster together, when they coalesce, it's always going to turn out poorly. So help us find those things. And that's vastly different from lying on your back and looking up at the constellations and saying, there's a scorpion and there's a giant Halloween pumpkin.
Right.
And so that guiding that Q is doing, they know it's wrong. They know from the get that, and it's not unlike Orwell's 1984. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because now all we have to do is get adept at rewriting the history or erasing certain parts of the history. And guess what? We have a culture. And that's dangerous. That's frankly, information science is dangerous. And if you don't completely understand it, you could simply fall into a trap.
I think that all of these, anything can be, I mean, I think this is one of the few times in history where, maybe weird game design and national security are emerging a little bit.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Where it anything can be used or weaponized, and it's the time for this. You know what I mean? I think that it's part of a. I think Q is part of a larger ecosystem
Yes.
that is happening online. I think the earliest I kind of picked up on it was during Gamergate, which hit my area of the world, and Gamergate was a just bizarre. It was I don't understand psyops. I'm not in that world, but I saw it and I'm like, this is not like anything I've ever seen. This is different. This appeared sort of inorganically,
Hmm.
and I couldn't understand where it came from or why it was there, but I knew it was bad, 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 bad. And so this is kind of like this election cycle, things like that. This is where they kind of scooped up all the people that were coalescing on the internet that had they were isolated, they were in their own things, they had a lot of anger and resentment, and kind of uh, made them extreme. They brought them to a new level, a new place of anger that was seemed was it coordinated? It seemed weird. It was very, people were like, what is going on? um and then we see it now, all over the place. But it's the environment, it's the fact that like if you control the environment online now, you control so much because people are more isolated than ever,
Right.
and we feel connected through these communities, right? But people cannot get their head around the fact that you can join a community and interact with hundreds of people, and all those people cannot be real, and that everything that they link to is also not real. And so you're trapped. You're literally trapped. You can't
Right.
get out of it because everybody that you talk to is part of it. It's literally I mean, like, in real life it would be very hard to have a conspiracy like that, but online it's a press of a button. You can make 10 million bots just by going click. Okay, and now they're active, and you can have real people running them, and you can have algorithms, and you can change them, and you can put them on both sides, and you can have them fight each other, and you can do anything you want. And now we've got Parlor, and we've got you know so not only is there a bubble where on Facebook you're all on Facebook, but some
Right.
people are on like a different kind of Facebook than others. Now you're not even on Facebook anymore. You're on the alt right social media platform, or you're on
Y-
the it's
Right.
like,
No, and that becomes that
oh
that
my
that
god,
echo chamber basically, you know what I mean?
they
And
control
that's,
everything.
well, there you go. That's a perfect line too. Everything, they control everything, and now they are in charge. That playing into the they is consistent through every type of conspiracy theory,
It
and
is. It
and
is.
just understanding what, and studying about human behavior, and also working for the federal government for a very long time. Like, let me tell you, there's
There's no
very
they. Yes,
almost
I know,
no.
and I just said it.
It's like
But
it's great,
but if you look at the narrative of
yeah,
sort of like, okay, Twitter's trying to censor everything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they are trying to
yep,
censor everything,
right.
and now you have a place where you can say what you want to say. You know what I mean? And there's somebody you even more controlling that.
Right.
Uh,
It's the thing. It's, I'm going to take one and I'm going to move over to the other, not realizing that one's actually going to be worse than the one I'm on right now sometimes.
It,
And
it it doesn't seem worse because it's aligned with your interests.
well, that's a big danger too. I mean, in general, even just with AI and social media and how it works and what the algorithms do to only feed you things that you're interested in, that's dangerous because your beliefs never get challenged that way. It's just
Yeah.
one confirmation after another. And then now it seems like the whole world, and it seems so obvious to you. And then, especially when you bring up things about like community and how you can build a community with augmented reality games and all the stuff that you do as a game designer, that's part of it because that keeps me going in the game and keeps me interested. Now I have this community, and I'm using a device on my phone, this social media, which mimics and plays on my basic human needs, and it gets fulfilled right there, even though, what like you just said, I could be interacting with 100 fake accounts spreading all spreading the same misinformation. So
And
it's
I'm
just
sure you guys know this more than I do, but you know, when you are problem solving with a community, you get very tied in, you make friends,
yep.
you know, and it's a rush and you can't wait to get back there. You know, that's one of the ARG main draws is that you're gonna every Wednesday you're gonna have something to do. You're gonna have people excited, you know, and you're waiting for the next episode to come out, and you're all gonna think about what you know what it is, and you're all gonna be wrong, you know, but there's gonna be a couple people who finally crack it. It's always the same like handful of 5 people in every ARG, you know, but you're gonna have fun anyway, you know, and you're gonna be on the posting boards and wild specking and all this stuff like that, and it builds community. And if that community is already predisposed or you know manipulated in some way, it helps you come to the conclusions you know that the handlers want you to come to. um
But that's sometimes okay, Reed. We use that in class to get soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, law enforcement personnel pre-deployment or going into very dangerous situations. We've got a very tight schedule to get them in the zone so they can sense, make, and problem solve very obtuse and sometimes dangerous in environments. And to do that, not everybody's going to be able to crack the code, but everybody in the class will feel like they're taking part in it.
yeah,
And every piece of their contribution will add to the end. So humans are predisposed to create explanatory storylines. We leverage that. Psychological operations is control the message. We leverage that. We also
absolutely.
have to build a narrative that's logical. We leverage that too. And it's hard. This is where Q goes the opposite direction completely. The x-axis, okay, is that it's very hard to prove that something doesn't exist. So if
Yes.
we were talking
Yes.
80 years ago, we would be talking about a back injury. Because if I wanted to make a claim, I would claim a slip and fall and a back injury because you can't prove it. And the scientists and the lawyers and the doctors knew it. So I could go in, and if I was compelling enough, I would get a payoff. You couldn't prove it. Now science is advanced. So now we have to control the message, laser focus. We have to suggest a narrative, not control the narrative, suggest a narrative, and then we'll cross our arms and say, look it up. That
Yeah.
alone starts this Quixote windmill tilt that
Mhm.
will never stop. And would you agree,
Yep.
Reed, that that's logical, that it works that way?
I I think that it could work that way. I think it works that way, you know, when you want it to work that way.
Exactly, precisely.
Because yeah, I mean, I think if you're controlling the messaging, you control the whole. I mean, I would put it in different terms, and I'm not saying that it's that way or not that way because I don't know enough. I'm not, you
Sure.
know, uh, in that pattern recognition world in that sense. But from my perspective, the way I would say it in gaming terms anyway, would be that you're controlling, you know, the context and the point of view. I would say, you know, humans are, you know, we're stories that play games in a way. And so we need to have a point of view because that point of view helps us make fast decisions. And I think that's similar to what you're saying in the
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's just, again, we're on the same yin and yang, the
yeah.
same coin. It's just the other side, the
Yeah,
darker
okay.
side.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that all of these techniques are valuable and natural, and I think that's what is weird about, you know, dangerous about Q and other propaganda is that they're perverting them. Like I don't expect gamers to not use these techniques because Q uses them. I just want to make people aware of them. You know, a
Yep.
lot of people have said, "Hey, you're using that technique in your article."
Yeah,
I'm like, "Of
you're
course I'm
right.
using
Yeah.
that technique in my article."
That's
Like if I'm looking at a big mess of information and I'm trying to make, you know, I'm trying to make a pattern out of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I
yeah.
say it in my article, yeah, this could be apophenia. I don't know how much of this is true. All I'm saying is my educated guess is more educated than some people's guesses because I have this very weird experience
Right.
as just making games online
Right.
in reality, which
Right.
probably a lot of people
You
don't
have
have.
you have an experience in hypothesis testing, right? Because you even just the way you
Yes.
just said it right now, you just wrote an elaborate article, you know, that
Beautiful article.
it brings in so many different areas that you could deep dive. And then, but you're even approaching it like, I don't know though, I'm not an expert. Here's what I see. I could be wrong. Like you're already creating you're giving yourself a little bit of doubt because that's how technically you're supposed to do it, right?
Right. And also,
That's the opposite of how these conspiracies work.
as a a self-proclaimed expert, right?
Yeah.
So I am
you are now.
trying.
You're on the podcast. You're an
Yeah.
expert.
I'm legitimate. Finally.
You're qualified. Yes.
Thanks, guys. But I'm trying to provide answers. I'm trying to give that hypothesis anyway, and say, okay, think about this and let me know what you think. What I'm not doing is I'm saying, have you noticed that Q does this, or have you noticed?
Yeah.
Thing. I'm not leading you to come up with something. I'm
Yeah.
saying
Right.
I'm a game designer, and this is how I design games, and this is what they do,
Well,
and this is what I think about it. Right? It's my opinion.
Right.
Okay. It's my best guess, and I'm labeling it as such. What I'm not saying is I know. I'm not telling you, but isn't that weird?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things you wrote about in the article too. This is not a game. So
It's not a game.
Well, that's what I mean. So
Yeah.
that's different. Is you're all the elements are there, and for building a great, kind of semi-reality or augmented reality game. But that's the kind of warning there is like, but wait a minute, this isn't a game though. People are playing this, taking it seriously for what it is, and that's obviously the scary part. But
That
one,
is.
and one of the things couple things I kind of wanted to ask you about because you talk a little bit about one that there's some indoctrination going on, and that this is not organic, meaning this what is happening is not an organic thing. It didn't sprout from something real. And I like the way you use those terms. And one of things you said is that's troubling is that the Q is teaching their followers how to proselytize. So what do you kind of like elaborate a little bit on that? What do you like? What tools are they giving them, or how are they setting that up to get them to proselytize and share the information?
Okay. Well, again, that's not my area of expertise, but in a game design, right, going viral is part of what we do. Right. You want as many people to play your game or to, enjoy your media as you can get. Okay. And the process is to make people really, really like it and give people fun ways to share it. What Q is doing is exactly, they're teaching their own methods, which is somewhat why it's so easy to see what their methods are, because they're literally saying, like I think in the last, Q quote, they're literally calling themselves an alternate reality, and they're saying you've got to get people to follow the breadcrumbs away from reality to an alternate reality. They're not hiding this. Okay, they're telling you what to do on I earlier on when it was on 4chan or 8chan or 8con or whatever it used to be on, there would nearby to these Q drops also be lists of memes, how to make memes, how to distribute the memes, how to indoctrinate people into Q, because now you can be the white rabbit. Like you can drop the clues. You can create a rabbit hole to get your friends down. So that's why a lot of times you'll see Q people, and they'll have a Q with a rabbit, or they'll have a kind of a hashtag that doesn't seem to make sense, but you Google it, right? So like the where we go one, you go, it's just WWG one. It's nothing that you would know unless you already knew, or if you thought, oh, that's weird, what does that mean? I haven't seen that one before, and you click it, and Twitter shows you all the stuff, and you start going down the rabbit hole. So so they're very specific. Some of the groups, if I remember, I may be remembering this incorrectly, but some of the groups that this was on also had some very intense, like, tutorials on open source information gathering, how to get people's real location so you can research Antifa, or things like that, because Q will ask all these questions like, okay, so Epstein had an island or something. I don't know, but who was next to the island? Why was the island there?
Yeah.
And so now you're on Google Maps, and you're zooming in, and you're trying to figure it out, and like who who was the architect who built the house, or what was the thing that, whatever. But they've got some reason. They're like, oh, that was that guy's son. Oh, we're going to use that. Let's put that in there. But they can't put it in there. They're going to say, who was his neighbor? Who would benefit? You know what I mean?
Right.
And now you're using all these tools to do this, but the tools that you're using are they're not. I don't know. It seemed like they were borderline hacking tools. They're all open source software stuff, but to get you more, to spread it around more, basically, find out more information, spread it around. They give you clues on, how to get your friends. They're like, these people, don't be mad at them. They just don't know. They're still blue pilled, and you've got the red pill. So
Yeah.
let's, you know what I mean? It's like when it's like I don't know how to explain it, but when you get a new social media app and you love it and you want all your friends to get on it, so that's like what Q is. They're having this great time with this thing. They believe it, they like it, and they love to have all their friends on there with them. And this is teaching them how to do it. And that is not how games work.
I would caution just a couple of things, Brian. I'm based on what Reed just said. I say that propaganda abounds. It's everywhere, and it always has been, and it always will be. When Martin Luther, was at the door, he was tacking up propaganda. Advertisers use it every day. So I say slow down, slow your roll, meaning the rest of the world on cue when it comes to propaganda. What doesn't pass the smell test for the Ream is coordinated propaganda campaigns. And Brian, you used the word proselytize because Reed used it, and it's a great word. But I think that if you look at the etymology of the word and then you take a look at the way it's being used, we're not talking about sharing. We're talking about infected cancer cells multiplying and duplicating themselves and growing and building new cabals full of those cells that can then regenerate and grow. And if you cut the chameleon's tail off, it can grow. Difference is talking across the water cooler and saying, hey, just see that Joker last night on television and he did this, to, hey, listen, you've got to get this information. This is important. And then, putting it on your house and changing your, website and changing your email name. I was sitting on an airplane, which we do a lot. Brian and I travel too much. And the dude that was in the middle seat, the middle seat, you're always going to get a nut. I'm sorry, folks, if you're in the middle seat, that's just a rule. And this was just pre-COVID, maybe 9 months, 10 months ago. And it was, as a matter of fact, I know when it was. It was after the dope smoking day in Denver, and we had to fly to Philly, Brian. And so everybody on the plane was stoned, and all the stoners that were sitting next to me were old people. And I was going, hey, so, you guys high right now? Oh yeah, we're baked. Well, where are you headed? They said, well, we're going to Philly and then we're driving to Virginia. What for? Well, we're protesters. I said, like you? And they go, no, all of us, this whole group, we're protesters. We fly there. They pay our flights. They pay our meals. They pay our hotel. When we show up, they give us the shirts and the clothes and the hats to wear, and they give us the signs. And I go, well, how did you get roped into that? They go, we're retired. We love to travel. They've got casinos. We have a ball. We get drunk and get high and just have a party. I said, so you have none of the message. It doesn't resound with you. No, I could give a damn about the message. I'm just sending it. See, that's sharing, Brian. That's not proselytizing. Proselytizing would have been sitting next to me going, here's your sign. Wear the hat. Little red book. You get what I'm trying to say? And that's what Q has done. Q has cracked the code how to jump that, Brian, how to jump that broom and get me to care about that and go home and look it up. Not a lot of, advertising doesn't do that. Movie advertising does that. Hollywood's never done that.
Got to be good.
That's why I fear it. That's why I'm afraid.
And we have up in Maine, there's one of the people who ran for office actually, that Susan Collins gave some money to. This guy runs a QAnon based church.
Wait,
and
his church is based on QAnon?
It's infused with QAnon. They discuss the Q drops, and they have Q titled, things. And I won't say the name of it because I'm not spreading it, but their goal isn't just to get people to watch and view. It's to create new churches all around. They have a very specific goal in mind, with this, and it's to spread. So, I one of your other podcasts that I saw, the apocalyptic one.
Yeah, apocalyptic psychology. Yeah,
I've had a few people contact me that were very religious and different, and just found that the messaging of Q really resonates with some of that. You know, the storm is coming and all this stuff, and it's very you know, good and evil. And it really has sucked in some people on that side before it was kind of like pushed into the health community and other, you know, communities. You can kind of watch it spread. But yeah, so definitely they're trying to proselytize. I think that so, you know, some are, and that's what's, I think that's what's so confusing talking about Q, is that it's distributed over this wide spectrum. So, you know, when I say like, oh, it's like a church, someone else says, no, it's like, you know, a political thing. You know, it's like, yes, all of that. It's opportunistic, and it is not. It's not centered on anything yet. You know, it's still deciding where it's gonna.
Well,
You know,
I think
go.
that's what keeps it alive, right?
Yes.
I mean, meaning it has to find, you know, it's just like Greg gave the cancer, the disease. Well, if it, or look at COVID, if it can't infect any more people, then it goes away, right? That's what they talk about literally when they talk about like herd immunity, right? So it's the same way. Like it has to continue to move and update, and it has to adapt and has to say, oh, well, also this, and well, not so much that anymore, but look at this area. And if you're already bought in, you're that much more willing to then get to whatever that next level is, that next area. It almost reminds me of some of the stories of interviews of people coming out of the Church of Scientology. So I don't want to get sued or anything, and these are not my stories.
That's
Too late.
But where they got to that point where they're supposed to have this revelation because they've been in so long, and they get up to this whatever level, and then they hear the story and they're like, wait, what? Wait, hang on.
But
what?
I think
That's
you're on the cusp
absolutely
of it.
insane. And then they go, oh my God, their whole past 10 years of their life, the belief structure is gone. I mean, that's you want to talk taking a pill, that's a tough pill to swallow.
But Brian, I think you're on the cusp of something our readers, watchers, listeners need to know. If you are giving me information with which I can draw reasonable conclusions, I don't give a damn if they're unreasonable conclusions. Whatever you're giving me, that's fine. But if your words, if your statements, if your cites are leading me to action, to actually call the police, to actually fight the police, to actually burn down a building, that's the difference, Brian. You have the right to do that. You have the right to speech, but you don't have the right a gang to show up at the bank and break open the safe and take the money. So all I'm saying is that I see the difference here is that the hook and the barb only goes one way. Do you get what I'm trying to say? You're for us or you're against us, and that's dangerous.
That's the thing. I mean, I think you put that really, really well. That's what's dangerous, right? In every game, there's no game designer in the world that wants someone to call the police.
Right.
You know, I think that there's and it's confusing because especially in alternate reality games, there's a saying that says, that games have, this is not a game. This is not a game. And it's repeated a lot, right? Because but I think that's misunderstood. Everybody knows it's a game. The game is set in the future, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Like, you can't ever mistake it for something that is real. Okay, that is super, super important. I think what this is not a game style is about is like when you're in a theater, right? The people on the stage don't stop their reality and be like, oh, line or something like that. That distracts from the thing. So everything that happens within the game has to happen from a game logic or, something like that. But it's not saying that it is real. It's not saying call the police. It's not saying, pester people. And the games that have done that have been super destructive, like Ong's Hat or something like that, which was not meant to be destructive at all. I don't think that the producer of that game really thought anything like that would happen. But at the same time, he was also reaching out to other conspiracy theories and dragging them all together. He was, I think, maybe the first one to do this, where he really took, just like QAnon now is into, G5 and it's into, the Bill Gates and it's into, whatever is hanging around. Right. It's trying to scoop it up to get more critical mass. And that's what Ong's Hat did early on. you know, it tried to put all these conspiracy theories together to give itself more power and legitimacy, and it totally worked to the point where the creator was driving around afraid for his life and armed in a car, you know, with people stopping him, black bands, and the whole 9 yards, you know, and he did not expect it. He was not trying to do that, but Q is, you know.
There's a film out there for the people that are listening in. First of all, Brian's going to put Reed's website up. It's incredible. There's so much there to look at.
Thank you so much.
We are going to continue to talk about this because it's so relevant to what's going on. I would tell everybody, second part of your homework, find the movie The Warriors. It was made back in late 70s, early 80s. Great soundtrack in the city by Joe Walsh. The whole movie is a very simple Hollywood premise, fighting to get out of a place. It's not unlike Magnificent Seven, Seven Samurai turned on its ear with the gang culture. What's important to note, though, is what happened when the movie came out. The movie was so different than other movies of its time that people that were at the drive-ins and were at the theaters became violent while watching the film and receded into little groups and fought their way out of the theaters and into the lobby. And I know I was at 8 Mile. I was at the Bel Air Theater at 8 Mile and Van Dyke, and the crew that I was with was getting so amped up that they were challenging other people in other cars. And when we pulled out onto 8 Mile, we got the red light, and I stepped out thinking it was brawl time. And the Grand Prix I was in with all my friends, they went back to East Detroit. So I got a good thumping because of the movie. The idea is your words can entertain, if you want to define that. They can educate. They can give you a cognitive break because it's good for your sleep patterns and fun to be online and immerse yourself in a fiction, immerse yourself in a thing that we know is a fantasy. But when Q crosses the line is when they make their call for action. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a veiled way. I believe, this is my opinion, it's a veiled way to get people to act like those cancer cells. And that's why we have to expose it. That's why we have to talk about it. And this is a great forum. Your article did a lot to knock the dust off of people and say, this is more than a thing. This is going to be around, and we have to deal with it now,
Yeah.
or we're going to be dealing with it later.
Yeah. There'll be other iterations of this.
And they're not going to be fun. They're not going to be for pleasure.
They're going to be, this is almost a test, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, it's things like what you people are doing in helping people to think critically about things and to recognize these types of things that needs to happen. Because I think that from now on, just like people needed to be aware of advertising and, you know, media manipulation, this is going to be the new reality. You're not going to be able to go online without being exposed to this. And I know that, you know, when it really hit home to me was when my son came to me and was very upset about something that he saw online, and it was a manufactured Q piece. It wasn't real. And I was like, wow, okay. And it was on TikTok. It was not deep in the depths of the internet. It was being distributed by people he likes, by people he trusts, and there were no warning signs that this was not any more real than anything else. And we had to go into a pretty intensive discussion of how to read the media.
Well,
how unfortunate.
That's the big thing too.
And that's it. It's gonna come to you. You're not gonna have to go to it. And I think that's in the future.
Well, and that's part of the problem too, is that I'm not getting it. I'm not turning on a cable news channel, getting information going, well, look, they're selling tickets too. I at least understand that when I watch the news. It's when when Greg or Reed says, dude, you got to check this out, man.
Yes.
I automatically give it more credibility than it deserves. So there was just a couple things I wanted to ask you about too, is one, your rabbit as your author name for the article.
We both have an idea of why.
Yeah, we want to hear it. Yeah, I want
okay.
to hear
well, I'm curious to see if it's right. So what really happened is that we were the original site at CuriousInstitute.com was kind of out of date, and we were thinking of moving it. I had set up a account on Medium to do a literary magazine called Rabbit Rabbit that was coming out on the first of the month every month, and I liked the sort of like playful Rabbit Rabbit uh, kind of game that people play. You're supposed to say Rabbit Rabbit for good luck the first of the month. Um, and so I'd set it up for that, and didn't realize that when I set up my account, I thought that I had to set up the name of the name of the magazine as the account. So when I set it up as Rabbit Rabbit, and then when I published my articles, they came out as, from Rabbit Rabbit instead of my name. So everybody was like, you're
Intriguing.
why would you be anonymous? Why would you publish this anonymously? I'm like, oh, okay, I linked myself. I linked my profile on the first sentence. I wasn't trying to be anonymous. I just didn't think that many people would read it.
Yeah. That's okay.
And then people are like, well, you don't put your name on any of the articles, on your site. And I'm like, I just assumed that everybody would know that I was the director and I wrote them all, but you're right, I didn't. And that is, and if you're getting into that mindset of like, being suspicious, it's correct to ask that question. Like that's the right thing to do, and say, yeah, who is behind this? You know what I mean? But
no,
and that's I'm not hiding. I was just rushing.
I thought it had something to do with kind of like we talked about going down the rabbit hole, or the rabbit, leading you into an alternate universe. Like this is, I kind of thought it was some reference to that. I was like, well, he's got so much meaning in what he writes. It has to mean something. But that's a perfect example, Reed. Like that is a perfect example of exactly everything we just talked about over the last hours. Here I am attributing value to something that literally has, you went like, dude, I signed up like, and it was this is how the registration process.
I wasn't going to use the Medium. We're just going to keep it at our site. And then in the last second, I decided, Medium is a great, it's going to spread it around a little bit more. I'm going to post some articles there. And I'm like, oh, look, it's coming out under my, my name. But this is the key thing, right? So when you hear the reality of it, you're like, it's a letdown.
Yeah,
right?
Huge.
Because it's a letdown because you're whatever you come up with on your own, or whatever Q comes up with, is going to be a lot better. It's going to be more exciting. It's going to actually make more sense. You know what I mean? It would have made much more sense if I had been like, oh yeah, Rabbit, that's good. Good. If I had been smart and clever and done that, that's a better story. If I was writing a story, that's what I would want it to be. The game designer who, is the clue. So everything Q says makes more sense. Every theory he comes up with just hits home better than the truth, which is a disaster,
Which is why you should be suspicious. We deal with terrorism and counterterrorism a lot. And one of the things in terrorism and counterterrorism is you probe to test the weakness for location, association, and opportunity. That's what Q is doing. Okay. Then the next part of it is you take a look at how you get people on your side. Well, that's not really my goal. My goal is to make one person in that village not give a damn. If I can get that person just not to care about me operating, I've won some territory. Now I can start manipulating the environment like the cancer and proselytize. So that's very similar to what we're seeing with Q.
Oh yeah, that's a great piece of knowledge. I mean, that's not for my world, but that totally makes sense to me. Yeah.
Right.
No, you can just get one person to be like,
just one.
Yeah.
That's that drop in the water we talked about, Reed.
And that's with any misinformation or disinformation campaign. I don't have to get you to believe what I'm saying. I just have to maybe get you to not believe what someone else is saying, right? And so it creates that mess, that turbidity.
Yeah.
So one other thing I wanted to ask you too, and it is just is any feedback or anything you've learned after you wrote the article and then you got people back to you, or anything that you've gone, oh man, I didn't see it that way, or man, that's a good point, or oh crap, I better go into hiding, or anything?
Yeah. Salman Rushdie.
No, I think that I expect, first of all, a lot of the stuff I write is a little esoteric, and it's like a half an hour long read. It's like 6,000 words. So for the internet, there was no reason to expect anybody would read this except a few gaming nerds. So that was the first thing. I was totally shocked by the attention. I expected the gaming community to be like, I passed it around and said, is this, going along with what you think is happening? So I expected a little bit of attention there, but yeah, there was a huge amount of people. That was the first thing. Second of all, I should probably get an editor, at some point. I think a third of the comments were about grammar.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
How
uh,
shallow? How absolutely shallow.
yeah, no, it's got to, I think that it was more from the position of like, okay, I'm going to help you. This article needs to be shared around, more, but I don't really want to do it if the author's anonymous and you're misspellings and stuff in it. So we had some kind offers also to edit and to help us, to put a very long, messy article into shape. And so I think that probably what I expected is in my weakest point of of information, which is who's behind it, who's doing it. That's where I'm guessing a lot more, and I'm making, well, could be like this or could be like that. I'd assumed that because the messaging of the QAnon group is so tightly tied into some of the things that we know are propaganda that have been proved by the government to be, from other countries and other things, that I thought that they were necessarily an unofficial organ of that spread of propaganda. Um, Interestingly enough, some of the other game designers who had gone into this technically a little bit more have suggested that it could be that, or it could be that these people are game jacking, what's called game jacking. So they feel like some of them came from another internet game called Cicada, and we're trying to move people from there into this game, and then this game is trying to suck up the messaging from the other, from all this propaganda, and that it's really more like an opportunistic, you know, thing, but the net effect for the person playing it is exactly the same. There
Right.
is almost no differentiation in the messaging except for the fact that they keep bringing in more and more conspiracy theories
Right.
into the Q umbrella, and now it's going to be its own little social media network for conspiracy theories, really. And so that was something that I was like, oh yeah, that could totally be that. That could totally be happening. I really don't have a beat on who's doing it. But yeah, I will say that was kind of eye opening, that it could be a game jack. And so that would mean a much smaller group of people, who's taking their leadership indirectly from whoever's doing the propaganda, just for their own purposes of consolidating some kind of power, or just having their own group. But the messaging is really clear. And I'm going to say one last thing: as a game designer, this takes an enormous amount of effort, right? This
Yeah.
QAnon phenomenon, if I were designing a game and people are like, oh, well, it's just a guy in a posting board. No, it's not a guy in a posting board, because I've been in those games and I've talked to those designers. This game had rallies, physical rallies, organized in 50 states and different countries. It's in England, it's in the United States, it is all over the place. It's being name dropped by the president of the United States. And I'm telling you, if I had a game and I could get
Yep.
that
That
level
level.
of
Yeah.
exposure, I don't even know what I could pay to do that. I couldn't. You know what I'm saying? There's I don't know what the method. I don't want to get into my own conspiracy theory, but as a game designer, I can say people would kill for that kind of exposure and that type of
Right.
organization and that type of money being put into it. And I'm not saying it's millions of dollars. I'm saying this thing has to run on something, right? Someone is organizing 50 rallies in a physical location, and there have been some very expensive ARGs made, and they don't have that. Like, so someone is putting effort into this, right? It's not just taking off. These rallies were organized. They didn't. Not everything is organized. I mean, it's hard to organize. It's hard to do
Yeah.
anything. So if something gets done, it was hard. you know and you can see organic ones. I mean, they're out there. They're out there. They planted the rabbit hole, people went down it, and they stop at some point. They're not that big. They're not being name dropped by presidential press conferences, or by candidates. They're not having all these real world events. They're not in all these different countries. It and those had millions and millions of dollars poured into it. So this is not organic at
Right.
all. It doesn't feel that way to me. Like I would think that, people have this myth that like, oh, something can go viral, but that's not really true. Most
Yeah.
things that go viral
Our
have
plans.
millions of
Yeah.
dollars of campaign. I'm sorry. When I say campaign now, I'm talking about advertising campaign.
Right.
Of dollars put into it to make the new Oreo ad go viral or make the
Right.
new, whatever. They push it out to influencers. They push it out to. There's a whole process in doing this. This isn't.
Or it's so
something people-
novel that it's interesting, and then by tomorrow it goes away.
It's gone. Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
right.
you'll never be able to find it again.
Yeah, there are true viral
Right.
Right.
phenomenon,
But not
that
this.
that happen, but those things are very clear because they have no point.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Like, Star Wars kid had no point. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? He
right.
wasn't, the burn video that everybody showed, the kid going, oh, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just
That's it. That's all
that's
there
it.
is. Yeah. No,
They
that
didn't
you're
even
done.
know they were, it was anything was going to happen, right? And there's no point to it. There's no messaging. There's no nothing. But if you are watching a Dove commercial that's been passed to you because it's so, emotional, then that is advertising, and that had a lot of budget to get to you. And Q is being professionally pushed around in some level by some people who know what they're doing. I don't know. The size could be anything. It could be 5 people. It could be, more. It's impossible to know. A few people can do a lot on the internet,
Yeah.
but somebody is pushing this with an agenda. That's just the game production, right?
Well, kind of scary
That's a lot.
stuff, but also a lot to take in. And like I said, I'm gonna have the links to that article in the episode details, and I'll push it out because you did a great job of laying it out. You even went into the
Thank
a
you
lot.
so
We
much.
kind of talked a little bit about what we would call symbolism and iconography and how people take that too far sometimes. I mean, you really went into each one of those little sections. We could do like an entire podcast on how that works. But it's important to understand because this is now, I've been so fascinated over not just this one specifically, but all of them and just information theory in general, right? Because that's what Greg and I do a lot. And it just, there's so much out there, and how do I process it? How do I know what's real and what's not? And that's the hard problem right now. And to put this, I always like to too is frame it in some sort of historical perspective. Some of the stuff that we're talking about right now, I mean, these same conversation happened 500 years ago after Gutenberg invented the printing press, right? Because they said, hey, now anyone can learn, and now even the information could be bad because once you increase that capacity, right, or you increase your ability, that the quality, right, that the quantity increases, the quality goes down. So that's the same thing on Facebook.
Yeah.
Anyone can do anything. So, well, that immediately opens up the floodgates, and now the quality level goes down. So, and when we readjust and we go, okay, this is kind of how we're doing, and then something else comes along. So I think we're in that same stage with everything. We're still just figuring this out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people, I had a conversation with people about the sort of deep fake videos, and I'm like, okay, that's true. And they're like, well, reality is all gone now. And I'm like, well, that happened with photos like just 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's not all gone. It used to be if you had a photo of something, that was evidence. That was done. A done deal. Now we're like, yeah, okay, that's
Not so much.
fake. Yeah. Right. So yeah, I think I mean, I wish I could give everybody a primer course in and how to tell what's real or not. I'm not the one to do that, fortunately.
Well, that's the hard part. That's the hard problem. That's what we deal with, and everyone deals it from the different angles of perspective. Some people, but that's the general hard problem is, what do I believe, right? What's real? What is it? How do I prove things? And then anytime you do like Greg brought up earlier, you same thing you talked about, it's hard to prove a negative. So, hey, prove that didn't happen. It's like, oh okay. Like that's ridiculous.
Damn UFOs.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it's like,
for everybody.
I mean, I think that sort of the final takeaway for me, and it's not game designers work really hard to give people a magical experience and take them out of their world into something that feels, that's internal, that reflects internally
Yes.
inside them and makes them, if you're maybe a nerdy kid like maybe I was when I was growing up, and fighting dragons makes you feel strong, and you're not getting that from somewhere else, that's a great use of fiction. That helps make you brave. It helps you. If you're a kid and you're afraid of the dark and you like Batman, and Batman can walk through that room and get to the light switch through the dark. Batman loves to be in the dark, right? Now you
Yep.
love to be in the dark, and you can do that. That's great for fiction. But when people are inserting their own messages into your fiction to make you feel something that they want you to feel, that's where it's really terrible. And I think that's what's happening here. So I would like to protect people from that. Um,
Yeah, we
How
Reed, we
noble.
really appreciate you coming on here and just having these discussions and getting it out there. And we try to do that too as much as we can. And we're both very. I'm the first one to tell you. I'm probably not right, but but at least I'm trying really hard to
it's the
figure it out.
conversation.
It's the I can tell you what I know and from this perspective, but if next week someone comes along and proves everything that I believe to be true to be wrong, then okay, you got a better way and it works, then I'll accept that way now, and that's the thing
Absolutely.
is but that comes, challenging our beliefs and everything and not being so attached to them, but still being attached enough to know what works and not lose your mind. I mean, there's a lot in there, but I do appreciate you coming on, Reed.
Thank you so
This has
much
been a
for
great
having me.
conversation. And it was totally cool. I loved your perspective. So everyone listening, just read the article. You're going to get even more than we got to in the conversation because we
26 minutes that Brian and I have been talking about for hours, and I've been thinking about for days.
Yeah.
So that's good stuff. And I know, Brian, you'll echo this. Reed, we'd love to have you on a future broadcast talking about fiction, talking about storytelling.
Sure.
We have a great time. Your website is great. And thanks for listening to our pods. And I hope you'll spread them around too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you guys are doing is really interesting, and I'm just dipping my toe into it, but I hope to get deeper into it, and I hope other people do too.
Appreciate it, man.
So thank you so much for having me on. It's been great.
Thanks. And I always end for everyone listening, don't forget that training changes behavior.